Let yourself drift back through the centuries, to a time when the world was vast and mysterious, when journeys took months instead of hours, and when a single thread of silk could be worth its weight in gold. Our story begins not with a road, but with a secret. In the heart of ancient China, around 3000 BCE, something extraordinary was discovered. Legend tells us that Empress Leizu was sitting beneath a mulberry tree, sipping tea, when a cocoon fell into her cup. As it unraveled in the hot water, she marveled at the delicate, lustrous thread that emerged. This was silk, and for nearly 3,000 years, China would guard the secret of its creation more closely than any treasure. By the time of the Han Dynasty, around 130 BCE, silk had become so precious that it was used as currency. Farmers paid their taxes in bolts of silk. Officials received their salaries in silk. It was lighter than gold, easier to transport than jade, and desired by everyone who saw its shimmering beauty. But beyond China's borders, no one knew how this magical fabric was made. It was during this Han Dynasty that the Silk Road truly came into being, though it would be nearly 2,000 years before a German geographer would give it that romantic name. The road's creation was born from necessity, from conflict, and from an emperor's dream of horses. Emperor Wu of Han faced a constant threat from the Xiongnu, fierce nomadic warriors who raided China's northern borders. These horsemen were formidable, and Emperor Wu needed better horses, faster horses, the legendary heavenly horses that were said to sweat blood and run like the wind. He had heard tales of these magnificent creatures in the far western lands of Ferghana, in what is now Uzbekistan. In 138 BCE, Emperor Wu sent an envoy named Zhang Qian on a mission to forge an alliance with peoples to the west against the Xiongnu. Zhang Qian's journey would become legendary. He was captured by the very people he sought to avoid, the Xiongnu themselves, and held prisoner for 10 years. Yet he never abandoned his mission. When Zhang Qian finally escaped and continued westward, he became the first official Chinese emissary to make contact with the civilizations of Central Asia. He traveled through regions that would become the heart of the Silk Road, through the scorching Taklamakan Desert, past the soaring peaks of the Pamir Mountains, reaching as far as Bactria and Ferghana. Though he didn't achieve his original diplomatic goal, what he brought back was far more valuable. Zhang Qian returned to China in 125 BCE, 13 years after his journey began, with detailed accounts of the lands he had seen. He described the great cities of Central Asia, the customs of distant peoples, and most importantly, the possibilities for trade. He spoke of lands where merchants gathered, where goods from all directions changed hands, where Chinese silk was already prized, having traveled there through intermediaries. His reports would transform history. The route that Zhang Qian helped establish stretched over 4,000 miles, though no single merchant ever traveled its entire length. Instead, goods passed from hand to hand, through a relay of traders, each covering their own familiar section of the road. Silk would leave Chang'an, the Han capital, traveling in caravans of sometimes hundreds of camels, and by the time it reached Rome, it might have changed owners a dozen times or more. This was how the Silk Road was born, not from a single path, but from a network of desires, from the need for protection, the hunger for exotic goods, and the courage of those willing to face months of difficult travel for the promise of profit and wonder. In the segments ahead, we'll follow these caravans as they cross deserts and mountains, as they rest in oasis cities, and as they changed the world forever, one journey at a time. As caravans began to travel these ancient routes with increasing regularity, they faced challenges that would test even the bravest merchants. The journey from China to the west required crossing the Taklamakan Desert, whose very name whispers a warning: go in and you won't come out. This vast sea of sand, one of the world's largest deserts, stretched for over 600 miles across, with dunes that shifted like water and temperatures that could swing from scorching heat by day to bitter cold by night. To survive such crossings, merchants relied on the most remarkable of companions, the Bactrian camel. Unlike their single-humped Arabian cousins, these camels possessed two humps and were uniquely adapted to the Silk Road's harsh conditions. They could carry loads of up to 500 pounds and travel for days without water, their broad, tough feet perfect for both sand and rocky mountain paths. These patient creatures were so valuable that a merchant's wealth was often measured not in gold, but in camels. The caravans moved slowly, traveling only about 20 to 30 miles per day. There was no rushing on the Silk Road. Each evening, as the sun painted the desert in shades of amber and rose, the merchants would set up camp, tend to their animals, and share stories around fires that pushed back the enormous darkness of the Central Asian night. Rest was essential for both man and beast. Between these desert crossings lay the oasis cities, sparkling like jewels along the route. Cities such as Dunhuang, Turpan, and Kashgar became vital stopping points where caravans could rest, resupply, and trade. Dunhuang, positioned at the edge of the Gobi Desert, served as the last major stop before merchants entered the treacherous desert crossing. Here, in caves carved into cliff faces, Buddhist monks created stunning murals and collected manuscripts, building one of the ancient world's greatest libraries. These oasis cities became melting pots of culture and commerce. In their bustling markets, a merchant might hear a dozen languages in a single afternoon: Chinese, Sagdian, Persian, Sanskrit, and later Arabic. The air filled with unfamiliar spices, the colorful silks and carpets created a feast for the eyes, and the sound of different musical instruments blended into something entirely new. This is where the Silk Road became more than just a trade route, it became a bridge between civilizations. Among all the traders who traveled these routes, one group stood out as the true masters of Silk Road commerce, the Sagdians. These Iranian people, based in the region of modern-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, dominated trade from the 4th to 8th centuries CE. They were the middlemen par excellence, fluent in multiple languages, trusted by both Chinese and Byzantine merchants. The Sagdians didn't just transport goods, they transported ideas, religions, and innovations across continents. It wasn't only silk that traveled these ancient highways. Westward from China went jade, porcelain, tea, and precious metals. But the roads flowed both ways, and into China came treasures from the west, Roman glassware that seemed to capture light itself, precious stones like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, ivory from India, and spices that could transform the taste of food. Perhaps most importantly, along these routes traveled something invisible but transformative: knowledge. Buddhism found its way from India to China along the Silk Road, carried by monks who walked for years to spread their teachings. By the 1st century CE, Buddhist missionaries were traveling these trade routes, and Chinese pilgrims were journeying westward to seek authentic Buddhist texts. These spiritual seekers faced the same dangers as merchants, but they were driven by faith rather than profit. Their journeys would transform Chinese culture, art, and philosophy forever. As night deepens around you, imagine yourself resting in one of those ancient caravanserais, those roadside inns built every 20 or 30 miles along the route. The camels are quiet now, the merchants settling into sleep, and tomorrow the journey continues. But for now, there is only rest, and the endless stars above the desert, the same stars that guided travelers thousands of years ago. As dawn breaks over the ancient trade routes, let us follow the silk itself on its remarkable journey. The creation of this precious fabric was one of the world's most closely guarded secrets. In China, the penalty for revealing the secrets of sericulture, the art of silk production, was death. Any person caught smuggling silkworm eggs or mulberry seeds beyond the borders faced execution. The Chinese emperors understood that their monopoly on silk was a source of tremendous power and wealth, and they protected it accordingly. The process of creating silk was itself a meditation in patience. Each delicate thread came from the cocoon of the silkworm, which fed exclusively on mulberry leaves. A single cocoon might contain a continuous filament up to 3,000 feet long, though it would take approximately 2,500 silkworms to produce just 1 pound of raw silk. Women and children performed much of this delicate work, carefully unwinding the cocoons in warm water and twisting multiple filaments together to create a thread strong enough to weave. Yet secrets, like silk threads themselves, have a way of traveling. According to legend, around 440 CE, a Chinese princess was betrothed to a king in Khotan, an oasis kingdom along the Silk Road. Knowing she would miss the beautiful silks of her homeland, she smuggled silkworm eggs and mulberry seeds out of China by hiding them in her elaborate headdress. The border guards, out of respect for royalty, did not search her hair. Whether this tale is true or embellished by time, we know that by the 5th century, silk production had indeed spread to Central Asian kingdoms. As our journey continues westward, we arrive at the great city of Samarkand, one of the most magnificent stops along the entire Silk Road. Founded over 2,700 years ago, Samarkand sits in the fertile Zarafshan River Valley, a paradise after the desert crossings. By the 4th century CE, it had become the capital of Sagdians and a center of trade that connected east and west. Merchants called it the Pearl of the Eastern Islamic world, and its markets displayed goods from 3 continents. Beyond trade in physical goods, Samarkand and other Silk Road cities became centers of intellectual exchange. Here, scholars from different cultures met and shared their knowledge. Chinese papermaking techniques, one of humanity's most important inventions, traveled westward along these routes. Paper had been invented in China around 105 CE during the Han Dynasty by a court official named Kailawan, who created it from tree bark, hemp, rags, and fishnets. The knowledge of papermaking remained largely within China for centuries, but in 751 CE, something remarkable happened. At the Battle of Talas, fought near the border of modern-day Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, Arab forces defeated a Chinese army. Among the Chinese prisoners were skilled papermakers. These craftsmen were taken to Samarkand, where they shared their knowledge. From Samarkand, the art of papermaking spread throughout the Islamic world, reaching Baghdad by the 8th century and eventually arriving in Europe centuries later. This single transfer of knowledge would transform human civilization. Meanwhile, other innovations traveled eastward into China. Glassmaking techniques from Rome and Persia fascinated Chinese artisans. The concept of the windmill arrived from Persia. Grapes and wine cultivation, originally from the Mediterranean and Middle East, found new homes in Chinese soil. Even the mathematics we use today owes a debt to the Silk Road. Indian numerals traveled westward through Persian lands, were refined by Arab scholars, and eventually reached Europe as Arabic numerals. The Silk Road also carried music across continents. Instruments traveled from culture to culture, transformed and reimagined. The pipa, a Chinese lute, originated from Persian instruments that came east along the trade routes. The sounds of distant lands became part of new musical traditions, creating harmonies that had never existed before. In the courts of Tang Dynasty China, musicians played instruments from Central Asia, and their melodies spoke of far-off places and the mingling of peoples. Imagine the soft sound of a pipa playing in a Tang Dynasty garden, its notes carrying stories of deserts and mountains, of merchants and monks, of silk and secrets traveling across the ancient world. The Silk Road was never just one thing, it was a living river of exchange, flowing in all directions, carrying the best of human creativity and curiosity across the vast distances of Asia. As we travel further along these ancient pathways, we must speak of those who walked the Silk Road not for profit, but for spiritual enlightenment. Among the most famous of these pilgrims was a Chinese Buddhist monk named Xuanzang, who embarked on an epic journey to India in 629 CE. The Tang Dynasty emperor had forbidden travel to the west, deeming it too dangerous, but Xuanzang's devotion to obtaining authentic Buddhist scriptures was stronger than his fear of punishment. Xuanzang traveled alone at first, crossing the Gobi Desert by following the bones of previous travelers and their animals, which marked the path like macabre signposts. His journey would take 17 years, covering some 10,000 miles on foot. He studied at the great Buddhist University of Nalanda in India, where thousands of monks gathered to learn. When he finally returned to China in 645 CE, he brought back over 600 Buddhist texts and spent the rest of his life translating them. His journey became legendary, later immortalized in the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West. While monks sought wisdom, the Silk Road also attracted those seeking fortune through darker means. Bandits plagued the trade routes, hiding in mountain passes and desert edges, waiting to ambush caravans laden with valuable goods. This constant danger meant that merchants rarely traveled alone. They formed large caravans for protection, sometimes numbering hundreds of camels and dozens of armed guards. Even so, the threat was real enough that merchants would often hide their most valuable items in clever ways, sewing precious gems into the linings of ordinary clothing or concealing them in hollowed-out camel saddles. To protect travelers and facilitate trade, various empires established systems of way stations and military garrisons along the routes. The Tang Dynasty of China, which ruled from 618 to 907 CE, marked what many consider the golden age of the Silk Road. During this period, Chang'an, the Tang capital, grew to become the world's largest city, with over 1 million inhabitants. Its markets were cosmopolitan beyond imagination, with merchants from Persia, Arabia, India, and Central Asia living in special quarters, bringing their customs, religions, and goods. In Chang'an's western market, you could find anything the known world had to offer. Persian rugs lay beside Chinese ceramics. The air filled with the aroma of spices from India and incense from Arabia. Street performers from distant lands entertained crowds, while merchants haggled in a babel of languages. The Tang dynasty was remarkably open to foreign influences, and this cultural exchange enriched Chinese civilization immeasurably. Tang dynasty poetry, art, and fashion all showed influences from the Silk Road cultures. Beyond the eastern and western ends of the Silk Road, the routes also connected to maritime trade networks. The city of Guangzhou in southern China became a major port where Arab and Persian merchants arrived by sea, their ships filled with goods from Southeast Asia, India, and even East Africa. These sea routes complemented the overland Silk Road, creating a complete circuit of trade that encircled much of the known world. Goods that came by ship could continue overland, and vice versa, creating a truly global network of exchange. Religion continued to flow along these routes like an invisible river. Alongside Buddhism, other faiths traveled the Silk Road. Zoroastrianism from Persia, Manichaeism, Nestorian Christianity, and later Islam all found their way into Central Asia and China through these trade connections. In the Oasis cities, temples, churches, mosques, and monasteries often stood within sight of each other. This religious diversity was generally tolerated, even encouraged, as merchants understood that good trade relations required respecting each other's beliefs. The exchange of agricultural products along the Silk Road transformed the cuisines of entire civilizations. China received cucumbers, walnuts, pomegranates, and sesame from Central Asia and the Middle East. Peaches and apricots traveled westward from China. Perhaps most significantly, pasta-making techniques may have traveled from China to Italy, though historians still debate this. What we know for certain is that by the time of the Tang dynasty, the mingling of ingredients and cooking methods had created entirely new culinary traditions at every point along the route. Imagine the scent of unfamiliar spices carried on a warm breeze through Chang'an's markets, the sound of merchants calling out in languages that blend together like a song, the sight of silk banners in every color imaginable, dancing in the wind. The world was growing smaller, connection by connection, journey by journey, along the ancient Silk Road. As centuries passed along the Silk Road, the goods that traveled these routes grew ever more diverse and precious. Among the most sought-after commodities were the spices that could preserve food, enhance flavor, and even serve as medicine. Black pepper from India was so valuable that it was sometimes used to pay rent, taxes, and even ransoms in medieval Europe. A pound of pepper could be worth more than a pound of gold, and fortunes were made by those who could transport these aromatic treasures from east to west. The techniques of luxury craftsmanship also traveled these ancient highways. Chinese porcelain, with its translucent beauty and delicate strength, became one of the most prized exports along the Silk Road. The secret of creating true porcelain, using kaolin clay fired at extremely high temperatures, remained a Chinese monopoly for centuries. European potters tried desperately to recreate it, but it wasn't until the early 18th century that they finally succeeded. For over 1,000 years, Chinese porcelain pieces were treasured by Persian shahs, Arab caliphs, and European nobles alike, often worth their weight in silver. In the opposite direction, the art of glassblowing revolutionized Chinese craftsmanship. This technique, perfected by Roman artisans around the 1st century BCE, allowed for the creation of intricate glass vessels, beads, and decorative objects. When Roman glass reached China via the Silk Road, it caused a sensation. Chinese emperors collected these translucent treasures in their palaces, marveling at how light seemed to dance within them. Eventually, Chinese craftsmen learned these techniques and began creating their own unique glass works, blending Eastern and Western artistic traditions. The Silk Road also carried diseases, though this was a darker aspect of the interconnected world it created. The bubonic plague, which would later devastate Europe as the Black Death in the 14th century, likely traveled along these trade routes from Central Asia. Rats and fleas, hidden in grain shipments and cargo, could journey as effectively as any merchant. This reminds us that the Silk Road connected humanity in all ways, not just through the exchange of goods and ideas, but through shared vulnerabilities as well. Yet the benefits of connection far outweighed the dangers for those who traveled these routes. By the 13th century, the Silk Road reached perhaps its most famous period, largely due to the vast Mongol Empire. Under Genghis Khan and his successors, the Mongols conquered the largest contiguous land empire in history, stretching from Korea to Eastern Europe. While their conquests were brutal, they brought an unexpected gift, the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol peace. The Mongol Empire implemented a sophisticated system for travelers called the Yam, a network of relay stations positioned about 25 miles apart across their vast territories. Messengers carrying a special passport called a pesa could obtain fresh horses, food, and shelter at these stations. This system was so efficient that a message could travel from one end of the empire to the other, a distance of thousands of miles, in just a few weeks. Merchants benefited immensely from this infrastructure, and trade flourished under Mongol protection as never before. It was during this Mongol peace that the most famous Western traveler on the Silk Road made his journey. Marco Polo, a Venetian merchant, departed for China with his father and uncle in 1271, when he was just 17 years old. Their journey would take them through Persia, across the Pamir Mountains, through the deserts of Central Asia, and finally to the court of Kublai Khan, the Mongol Emperor of China. Marco Polo would spend 17 years in the service of Kublai Khan, traveling throughout China and Southeast Asia. When Marco Polo finally returned to Venice in 1295, the stories he told seemed almost unbelievable to Europeans. He described the vast wealth of China, cities larger than any in Europe, paper money, coal used for heating, and postal systems that connected an empire. His book, The Travels of Marco Polo, written while he was imprisoned during a war between Venice and Genoa, became one of the most influential travel narratives in history. It inspired generations of European explorers, including Christopher Columbus, who carried a copy on his voyage to the Americas. Gentle pause. Imagine the wonder Marco Polo must have felt, seeing for the first time the Great Wall stretching across mountains, the busy streets of Kublai Khan's capital, the unfamiliar yet fascinating customs of a civilization half a world away from his home. The Silk Road made such wonder possible, connecting human beings across vast distances, allowing them to see that the world was far larger and more diverse than they had ever imagined. The tales of travelers like Marco Polo revealed to the world just how interconnected the Silk Road had made civilization. Yet there were other remarkable journeys, less famous in the West but equally extraordinary. Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan scholar and explorer, embarked on what would become one of the longest journeys in human history. Beginning in 1325, when he was just 21 years old, Ibn Battuta would travel for nearly 30 years, covering approximately 75,000 miles, a distance that wouldn't be surpassed by any individual traveler until the age of steamships. Ibn Battuta's journey took him along the Silk Road through Central Asia, to the courts of various Mongol Khans, across the Indian Ocean to India where he served as a judge, and eventually to China itself. Unlike Marco Polo, who traveled primarily for trade and adventure, Ibn Battuta journeyed largely within the Islamic world, visiting Muslim communities from West Africa to Southeast Asia. His account, the Rihla or Journey, provides an invaluable perspective on the Silk Road from an Islamic viewpoint, describing the hospitality networks, the Sufi lodges, and the scholarly exchanges that connected the Muslim world. As the 14th century progressed, the Silk Road faced new challenges. The fragmentation of the Mongol Empire into separate khanates weakened the unified protection that merchants had enjoyed during the Pax Mongolica. Regional conflicts made travel more dangerous and unpredictable. At the same time, the devastating impact of the Black Death, which swept across Asia and Europe between 1347 and 1353, disrupted trade networks and decimated populations in many Silk Road cities. Yet even as overland routes faced difficulties, maritime trade routes were expanding. Chinese Admiral Zhang Qian led 7 extraordinary naval expeditions between 1405 and 1433 during the Ming Dynasty. His treasure fleets, consisting of hundreds of ships including massive 9-masted vessels over 400 feet long, sailed to Southeast Asia, India, the Persian Gulf, and the east coast of Africa. These voyages demonstrated China's naval capabilities and extended Chinese diplomatic and trade influence across the Indian Ocean, creating a maritime complement to the ancient Silk Road. The goods that Zhang Yi's fleets brought back to China included giraffes from Africa, which caused a sensation at the Ming court, precious stones, exotic woods, and spices. However, after Zhang Yi's death and due to changing political priorities, the Ming dynasty turned inward, eventually banning private maritime trade and dismantling the Great Fleet. This decision would have profound consequences, as it coincided with European nations beginning their age of exploration. The 15th century marked a turning point in global trade. European explorers, inspired partly by stories of the Silk Road's riches and seeking to bypass the Muslim-controlled land routes, began searching for sea routes to Asia. The Portuguese, under Prince Henry the Navigator, pioneered exploration down the African coast. In 1498, Vasco da Gama successfully sailed around Africa to reach India, establishing a direct sea route that allowed Europeans to access Asian goods without the many intermediaries of the Silk Road. This discovery of sea routes began the gradual decline of the overland Silk Road's dominance. Ships could carry far more cargo than camel caravans, the journey was faster despite its length, and the cost per unit of goods transported was significantly lower. The age of exploration shifted the center of global trade from the landlocked cities of Central Asia to the coastal ports of Europe and Asia. Cities like Samarkand and Bokhara, which had thrived for centuries as crucial Silk Road hubs, slowly faded in importance. Yet the Silk Road did not simply disappear. Regional trade continued along various segments of the route well into the 19th century. Merchants still crossed the deserts and mountains, though in smaller numbers and with less international scope. The cultural and religious exchanges that the Silk Road had facilitated had already left an indelible mark on every civilization it touched. The world had been permanently changed by these ancient pathways of connection. Wander peacefully through the centuries of exchange, seeing the faces of countless travelers, Chinese monks and Persian merchants, Sagdian traders and Arab scholars, Mongol warriors and Venetian adventurers, all seeking something beyond their horizons. The Silk Road was never just about silk, or spices, or gold. It was about human curiosity, the desire to see what lay beyond the next mountain, the next desert, the next horizon. As we journey deeper into the story of the Silk Road, let us turn our attention to one of its most precious and often overlooked treasures, knowledge itself. The Silk Road served as a conduit for scientific and mathematical discoveries that would shape human understanding for millennia. One of the most significant transfers was the knowledge of astronomy and mathematics from the Islamic world to China during the Yuan dynasty, when the Mongols ruled. Persian and Arab astronomers were invited to the Chinese court, where they shared their advanced astronomical tables, instruments, and calculation methods. In the opposite direction, Chinese innovations in astronomy traveled westward. The Chinese had developed sophisticated methods for predicting eclipses and had created detailed star catalogs centuries before similar work appeared in the West. Chinese astronomical instruments, including the armillary sphere used to model the celestial sphere, influenced Persian and Arab astronomy. This exchange enriched both civilizations, demonstrating that the Silk Road was truly a two-way street for knowledge as much as for goods. Medical knowledge also flowed along these ancient routes. Traditional Chinese medicine, with its theories of qi and balance, encountered the humoral medicine of the Greeks and Romans, preserved and expanded by Arab physicians like Avicenna. His medical encyclopedia, the Canon of Medicine, written around 1025 CE, synthesized Greek, Roman, and Islamic medical knowledge and became the standard medical text in both the Islamic world and medieval Europe for centuries. Copies of such texts traveled the Silk Road, influencing medical practices from Baghdad to Beijing. The art of textile production beyond silk also benefited from Silk Road exchanges. Cotton cultivation and weaving techniques, which originated in the Indian subcontinent around 3000 BCE, spread both eastward to China and westward to the Mediterranean through these trade networks. By the medieval period, cotton had become a significant trade good in its own right, with different regions developing distinctive weaving and dyeing techniques. The vibrant textiles of India, the intricate patterns of Persian carpets, and the delicate cotton fabrics of Egypt all owed something to the exchange of techniques along the Silk Road. The cities along the Silk Road developed unique architectural styles that blended influences from multiple cultures. The great mosques of Central Asia, with their brilliant blue-tiled domes and towering minarets, showed Persian architectural influence combined with local traditions. The Regis Tan Square in Samarkand, begun in the 15th century under Timur and his successors, became one of the most magnificent architectural ensembles in the Islamic world. Its three grand madrasas, or religious schools, featured intricate tilework depicting geometric patterns, calligraphy, and floral motifs that dazzled visitors from across the known world. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, deserves mention in our story. This Turco-Mongol conqueror, who ruled from 1370 to 1405, revitalized portions of the Silk Road even as he conquered vast territories through brutal military campaigns. Though feared for his ruthlessness, Timur was also a patron of arts and architecture. He transformed Samarkand into his capital, bringing back skilled craftsmen, artists, and scholars from his conquests to beautify the city. Under his rule and that of his descendants, the Timurid Empire became a center of Islamic art, science, and culture. The legacy of these Silk Road exchanges can be seen in the miniature painting traditions that flourished in Persia and Mughal India. These exquisite artworks, often illustrating manuscripts of poetry or history, combined Persian artistic traditions with influences from Chinese painting techniques. The delicate brushwork, the attention to detail in depicting gardens and architecture, the use of vibrant colors, all reflected the cross-cultural fertilization that the Silk Road had made possible. Artists might never have traveled the entire route themselves, but their techniques and styles journeyed thousands of miles through the works they created. Language itself was transformed by the Silk Road. Many words in modern languages revealed their Silk Road origins. The English word orange comes from Sanskrit through Persian and Arabic. Candy derives from the Sanskrit kanda, meaning sugar, traveling through Persian and Arabic before reaching European languages. Caravan comes from Persian. Bazaar comes from Persian. Even the word check in chess, and checkmate, comes from the Persian shah meaning king. These linguistic traces remind us that the Silk Road's influence persists in the very words we speak today. Every innovation, every word, every work of art carries within it the story of connection, of people meeting across vast distances and sharing what they knew, what they had created, what made their culture unique. The Silk Road was humanity at its best, curious, creative, willing to learn from those who seemed different but were, in the end, fellow travelers on the same journey. As we continue our peaceful journey through time, let us explore the role of money in banking along the Silk Road. The challenges of carrying heavy coins across thousands of miles led to remarkable financial innovations. Chinese merchants during the Tang dynasty developed an early form of paper money called flying cash, which were essentially promissory notes that could be exchanged for coins at different locations. This system allowed merchants to deposit coins in one city and receive a paper certificate they could redeem in another, reducing the risk of robbery and the burden of transporting heavy metal currency across dangerous routes. By the Song dynasty, which ruled from 960 to 1279 CE, China had developed the world's first true paper currency, known as jiaozi. This revolutionary concept gradually spread awareness of paper money's potential throughout Asia, though it would take centuries before similar systems were fully adopted in the West. The Mongols, recognizing the efficiency of paper money, expanded its use throughout their empire, though their overprinting eventually led to inflation and economic problems. The Silk Road also facilitated the exchange of luxury goods that went far beyond silk and spices. Jade, treasured in China for its beauty and symbolic meaning, was primarily sourced from the regions of Khotan and Yarkand in what is now Xinjiang. This precious stone had to travel over mountain passes and through desert oases before reaching Chinese workshops, where master craftsmen would carve it into intricate ornaments, ritual objects, and jewelry. The journey of jade exemplifies how even heavy, valuable stones found their way across the ancient world through the determination of merchants. carpets represent another remarkable Silk Road commodity. The art of carpet weaving reached extraordinary heights in Persia, where weavers created intricate designs using techniques passed down through generations. Persian carpets became so highly prized that they appeared in European paintings as symbols of wealth and status. The tradition of carpet making spread along the Silk Road, with each region developing its distinctive patterns and methods. Turkish, Central Asian, and eventually Chinese carpets all showed the influence of Persian techniques while incorporating local artistic traditions. The concept of the caravanserai deserves deeper exploration, for these structures were essential to making the Silk Road function. These fortified roadside inns were more than just places to sleep. They were typically built around a central courtyard large enough to accommodate entire caravans with their animals. The ground floor provided stables and storage for goods, while upper floors offered lodging for merchants. Caravanserais served as hubs of information exchange, where travelers shared news of distant lands, warned each other of dangers ahead, and sometimes conducted business transactions. Some caravanserais could house hundreds of people and their animals simultaneously. The larger and more elaborate caravanserais were architectural marvels in themselves. Many featured beautiful courtyards with fountains, decorated archways, and even small mosques or prayer rooms for different faiths. The Silk Road heritage includes thousands of these structures, though many now lie in ruins. In their heyday, during the height of Silk Road trade, a traveler might encounter a caravanserai every 20 to 30 miles, creating a network of hospitality stretching across continents. Women played significant roles in Silk Road commerce and culture, though their stories are often less documented than those of men. In China, women dominated silk production, from raising silkworms to weaving the final fabric. Sagdian women were known to accompany their merchant husbands on long trading journeys, managing household affairs and sometimes business matters during their travels. In some Central Asian societies, women controlled local textile production and trade. The legendary Chinese princess who smuggled silkworm eggs to Khotan is just one example of how women influenced the course of Silk Road history. The musical exchanges along the Silk Road created entirely new traditions and instruments. Beyond the pipa we mentioned earlier, other instruments traveled and transformed. The Persian oud, an ancestor of the European lute, influenced string instrument design from Spain to China. The Chinese guzheng and Japanese koto both show evidence of Central Asian influences in their construction and playing techniques. Musicians themselves traveled the Silk Road, carrying not just their instruments but entire systems of musical notation, scales, and performance styles that enriched the cultures they visited. Imagine yourself resting in a caravanserai courtyard as evening falls, the gentle splash of a fountain mixing with the quiet sounds of travelers settling in for the night. Somewhere, a musician plays an unfamiliar instrument, its notes carrying stories of distant lands. The air is cool now after the heat of the day, and tomorrow you will continue your journey, but tonight there is rest, safety, and the companionship of fellow travelers walking the same ancient path. As our journey through the Silk Road continues, let us explore the remarkable story of tea, a commodity that would eventually rival silk in importance. Tea cultivation began in China, where according to legend, the Emperor Chang'an discovered it around 2737 BCE when tea leaves accidentally blew into his boiling water. For centuries, tea remained a Chinese specialty, valued for its medicinal properties and its ability to aid meditation. Buddhist monks particularly appreciated tea for helping them stay alert during long periods of prayer and contemplation. Tea gradually spread beyond China's borders along the Silk Road, first reaching Tibet, where it became essential to the local diet, often churned with butter and salt into a nourishing drink suited to the high-altitude climate. By the 8th century CE, tea had reached Japan, brought by Buddhist monks who had studied in China. The Japanese would develop their own unique tea culture, transforming tea drinking into an elaborate ceremony that embodied Zen Buddhist principles of harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. The Silk Road was not only a conduit for goods and ideas but also for artistic techniques that transformed visual culture. The art of calligraphy, highly developed in both China and the Islamic world, traveled and influenced different traditions. Chinese calligraphy, with its emphasis on the expressive movement of the brush, encountered Arabic calligraphy, which had evolved to beautify the Quran and became an essential element of Islamic art. Though the writing systems were entirely different, artists recognized and appreciated the skill and spiritual dimension in each other's work. Gemstones and precious materials followed intricate paths along the Silk Road. Lapis lazuli, that deep blue stone prized since ancient times, came from mines in the Bactrian region of what is now Afghanistan. This stone was so valued that it traveled in all directions, west to Rome and Egypt where it adorned jewelry and burial masks, and east to China where it was carved into ornamental objects. The journey of a single piece of lapis lazuli might take years, passing through dozens of hands before reaching its final destination. The technology of printing also traveled the Silk Road, though this journey was gradual and took centuries. The Chinese invented woodblock printing during the Tang dynasty, with the oldest known printed book being the Diamond Sutra, dated to 868 CE. This technology slowly spread westward, though it would not be widely adopted in the Islamic world or Europe for many centuries. When Johannes Gutenberg developed his printing press in the 15th century, creating movable type for the Latin alphabet, he was building upon principles that had originated in Asia and traveled along the Silk Road trade networks. Falconry, the art of hunting with trained birds of prey, spread along the Silk Road from Central Asia to both China and Europe. This practice was not merely a sport but an important method of obtaining food and a symbol of status and skill. The Mongols were particularly skilled falconers, and under their vast empire, the practice spread even more widely. Falcons and hawks themselves became valuable trade items, with certain species prized for their hunting abilities. The terminology of falconry entered multiple languages, another linguistic legacy of the Silk Road. The production and trade of incense represented another significant Silk Road commodity. Frankincense and myrrh, both resins from trees growing in Arabia and the Horn of Africa, traveled northward and eastward along both maritime and overland routes. These precious substances were used in religious ceremonies across multiple faiths, from Buddhist temples to Christian churches to Zoroastrian fire temples. The incense trade was so valuable that it created its own network of routes, sometimes called the Incense Road, which connected with and complemented the Silk Road. Glass beads, though small and seemingly simple, tell a fascinating story of Silk Road exchange. Roman and later Islamic glassmakers created intricate beads that were traded across vast distances. These beads served multiple purposes, as currency in some regions, as decorative elements in clothing and jewelry, and as protective amulets believed to ward off evil. The techniques for creating specific colors and patterns in glass beads spread along the trade routes, with each region eventually developing its own distinctive styles while building on shared knowledge. Imagine the quiet concentration of a craftsperson working on a delicate glass bead, the steady hands of a calligrapher forming beautiful characters, the patient training of a falcon, the fragrant smoke of incense rising in a temple at dawn. These were the threads that wove the Silk Road together, not just commerce, but craft, beauty, and the human desire to create and share things of wonder. As we approach the end of our first journey through these ancient pathways, let us reflect on some final treasures and transformations that the Silk Road brought to our world. The cultivation of grapes and the art of winemaking, which originated in the regions around the Caucasus and Mesopotamia thousands of years ago, traveled eastward along the Silk Road. By the Tang dynasty, grape wine had become fashionable in China, particularly among the aristocracy and in cosmopolitan cities like Chang'an. Chinese poets of the era wrote verses praising wine from the western regions, celebrating this exotic beverage that had traveled so far to reach their cups. The exchange of military technology along the Silk Road had profound historical consequences. Gunpowder, invented in China during the 9th century and originally used for fireworks and signals, gradually spread westward. By the 13th century, knowledge of gunpowder and early firearms had reached the Islamic world and Europe. This transfer of knowledge would eventually revolutionize warfare across the globe. The stirrup, too, traveled along these routes. This seemingly simple invention, which may have originated with nomadic peoples of Central Asia, transformed cavalry warfare and gave mounted warriors far greater stability and effectiveness in combat. The art of sericulture, silk production, finally spread beyond Central Asia to reach the Byzantine Empire in the 6th century CE. According to legend, two Nestorian monks smuggled silkworm eggs out of China by hiding them in hollow bamboo walking sticks around 552 CE. They brought these precious eggs to the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, ending China's millennium-long monopoly. Byzantium established its own silk industry, centered in Constantinople and later in Greece and Syria, though Chinese silk remained prized for its superior quality. Philosophical ideas traveled the Silk Road alongside religions. Confucian texts and ideas about governance, ethics, and social harmony moved beyond China's borders, influencing Korean, Japanese, and Vietnamese civilizations. In the opposite direction, Greek philosophical works, preserved and expanded by Islamic scholars, eventually found their way back to Europe through these complex networks of exchange. The Islamic Golden Age, from the 8th to 14th centuries, saw scholars in cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Córdoba build upon both Greek philosophy and scientific works, creating new knowledge that would later fuel the European Renaissance. The story of rhubarb illustrates how even medicinal plants became valuable Silk Road commodities. Chinese rhubarb, prized in Europe for its medicinal properties, was so expensive that it was sold by the ounce like a precious spice. European doctors used it to treat various ailments, and the plant commanded such high prices that it became a significant trade good. The Russian Empire eventually gained control of much of the rhubarb trade, creating a monopoly that lasted for centuries. This humble plant's journey shows how the Silk Road carried not just luxury goods, but practical items that affected everyday health and well-being. the legacy of the Silk Road extends into the modern era in ways we might not immediately recognize. The routes themselves influenced where cities developed, where borders were drawn, and how different cultures came to see themselves in relation to their neighbors. The cosmopolitan attitude fostered by centuries of exchange, the ability to appreciate goods, ideas, and people from distant lands, helped shape the interconnected world we live in today. The very concept of globalization, of a world connected by trade and communication, has its roots in these ancient pathways. In the 19th century, as European colonial powers expanded their influence across Asia, there was renewed interest in the Silk Road's history. Explorers and archaeologists began excavating sites along the ancient routes, discovering forgotten cities buried by desert sands, retrieving manuscripts from cave libraries, and piecing together the story we've shared tonight. These discoveries revealed just how sophisticated and extensive the networks of exchange had been, changing our understanding of ancient history and reminding us that the past was far more interconnected than we had imagined. Today, the legacy of the Silk Road lives on not just in museums and history books, but in the cultural DNA of every civilization it touched. When you drink tea, use paper, wear cotton or silk, work with numbers originally from India, or use words borrowed from Persian or Arabic, you are participating in exchanges that began millennia ago. The Silk Road reminds us that human beings have always been curious about what lies beyond their horizons, always willing to undertake difficult journeys to discover new things, and always capable of learning from those who seem different from themselves. Let us continue our wandering through the layers of history that the Silk Road wove together. The city of Bokhara, in what is now Uzbekistan, deserves special mention as one of the jewels of the Silk Road. This ancient city, over 2,500 years old, became a major center of Islamic learning and culture during the medieval period. Scholars traveled from across the Islamic world to study in Bokhara's madrasas, and the city's libraries held tens of thousands of manuscripts on subjects ranging from astronomy to medicine to poetry. Bokhara was home to the great physician and philosopher Avicenna, whose works we mentioned earlier, and the city's intellectual vitality made it a beacon of knowledge along the trade routes. The techniques of metalworking and weapon-making also traveled the Silk Road, creating a fascinating exchange of military technology and craftsmanship. Damascus steel, produced in the Middle East using techniques that may have originated in India, became legendary for its strength and distinctive wavy patterns. Crusaders and European knights coveted Damascus steel swords, which could hold an incredibly sharp edge and were more flexible than European blades. The exact method of creating Damascus steel was eventually lost, though modern metallurgists have theories about how it was made. This steel traveled along Silk Road networks, and the knowledge of its creation influenced weapon makers across 3 continents. The humble yet essential saddle underwent significant evolution through Silk Road exchanges. The development of the modern saddle, with its rigid tree and stirrups, emerged from the innovations of Central Asian nomadic peoples. These improvements allowed riders to stay mounted more securely, to shoot arrows while riding, and to engage in close combat from horseback. The military advantage this provided was enormous, and the technology spread rapidly along the trade routes. By the medieval period, both Eastern and Western cavalry had adopted variations of these saddle designs, fundamentally changing the nature of warfare. Spices beyond black pepper deserve mention for their remarkable journeys and values. Cinnamon, originally from Sri Lanka and southern India, commanded extraordinary prices in ancient Rome and medieval Europe. Ancient Romans used it in perfumes, medicine, and cooking, and its rarity made it a symbol of wealth. Cloves from the Molucca Islands in Indonesia, nutmeg from the Banda Islands, these spices traveled incredible distances, passing through many hands, their prices multiplying at each transaction until they reached Europe worth more per pound than silver. The exchange of artistic motifs and design elements created hybrid art forms that reflected the Silk Road's multicultural nature. The Silk Road aesthetic blended Chinese dragons with Persian floral patterns, Greek geometric designs with Indian religious symbolism. Textiles woven in Central Asian workshops might feature Chinese phoenix designs executed in Persian color palettes with borders showing Roman geometric patterns. These objects were not merely decorative, they were physical evidence of cultures meeting, learning from each other, and creating something entirely new that belonged to no single tradition but to the Silk Road itself. Veterinary knowledge traveled alongside the animals that made the journeys possible. The care and treatment of camels, horses, and other pack animals became a sophisticated science along the Silk Road. Camel doctors, specialists in treating the ailments and injuries of these crucial creatures, were valued members of caravan communities. Knowledge of animal diseases, remedies, and breeding techniques spread along the routes. Chinese, Persian, and Arab veterinary texts influenced each other, creating a shared body of knowledge about how to keep the animals healthy that made long-distance trade possible. The postal systems developed along the Silk Road were marvels of organization. Beyond the Mongolian system we discussed earlier, various empires and kingdoms maintained sophisticated courier networks. Messages could travel faster than trade goods because relay riders on fresh horses could cover far greater distances per day than laden caravans. During the Mongol period, urgent messages could traverse the entire empire, from China to Persia, in a matter of weeks, an astonishing speed for the era. These postal routes often followed the same paths as trade routes, and the infrastructure they created benefited merchants as much as government officials. The concept of hospitality became formalized along the Silk Road into complex systems of mutual obligation and trust. Merchants developed networks of relationships across vast distances, often hosting each other's representatives when they passed through different cities. These networks were maintained through generations, with sons inheriting not just their father's businesses but also their networks of trusted partners. Letters of credit and recommendation traveled along these networks, allowing a merchant in one city to vouch for a stranger from another city thousands of miles away. This system of trust made possible transactions that would otherwise have been impossible in an age before modern banking and communication. Imagine the web of relationships, the invisible threads of trust and obligation that stretched across the ancient world, connecting people who would never meet face to face but who depended on each other nonetheless. The Silk Road was built on silk and spices, yes, but also on something more fundamental, on the human capacity to trust strangers, to honor agreements, to believe that somewhere far away, someone would keep their word. Rest now in that knowledge, that human beings have always been capable of building bridges across the distances that separate us. As our journey continues through the quieter hours, let us explore more of the subtle ways the Silk Road shaped our world. The exchange of textile dyeing techniques created a rainbow of possibilities along the ancient routes. The secret of producing Tyrian purple, that deep reddish-purple dye extracted from sea snails in the Mediterranean, was one of the ancient world's most closely guarded secrets. It took thousands of snails to produce just a small amount of dye, making garments colored with Tyrian purple more expensive than gold. This dye technique, along with knowledge of other natural dyes like indigo from India and cochineal from insects, traveled the Silk Road, enriching the palette available to textile makers everywhere. The concept of zero in mathematics, which seems so fundamental to us now, traveled from India westward along the Silk Road. Indian mathematicians developed the concept of zero as both a placeholder and a number in its own right around the 5th century CE. This revolutionary idea traveled through Persia, where it was embraced by Islamic mathematicians, and eventually reached Europe. Without this simple yet profound concept, much of modern mathematics, science, and technology would be impossible. The journey of zero reminds us that sometimes the most powerful things that travel are not objects at all, but ideas. Gardens themselves became a form of exchange along the Silk Road. The Persian Paradise Garden, with its geometric design, water channels, and careful arrangement of plants to create a space of beauty and contemplation, influenced garden design across Asia. The Mongol gardens of India, the Islamic gardens of Spain, and even aspects of Chinese garden design show Persian influence. These gardens were not merely decorative, they were physical representations of paradise on earth, places where travelers could rest and remember that beauty exists even in a harsh world. The very word paradise comes from the Persian paradisa, meaning an enclosed garden. The art of astronomical observation and the creation of observatories spread along the Silk Road networks. The Great Observatory at Samarkand, built by Ulugh Beg in the 15th century, was one of the finest in the world. Ulugh Beg, who was both a sultan and an astronomer, compiled star catalogs and astronomical tables of unprecedented accuracy. His work drew on traditions from Persian, Arab, Indian, and Chinese astronomy. The observatory's instruments were so precise that Ulugh Beg's measurements of the length of the year differed from modern calculations by less than 1 minute. Such achievements were only possible because of the centuries of astronomical knowledge that had flowed along the Silk Road. Food preservation techniques traveled these routes alongside the foods themselves. The Chinese method of preserving vegetables through fermentation, creating what we might call pickles, influenced preservation methods throughout Asia. Similarly, the Middle Eastern and Mediterranean techniques of preserving fruits by drying them or making them into pastes and syrups traveled eastward. These preservation methods were not luxury items but necessities. They allowed people to survive winters, to provision long journeys, and to transform seasonal abundance into year-round sustenance. The humble pickle jar, in its way, was as important to Silk Road trade as any silk bale. Musical theory and notation systems encountered each other along these routes, creating fascinating exchanges. The Persian system of musical modes, called dastgah, influenced both Arabic makam and the ragas of Indian classical music. While Chinese music developed its own sophisticated theory, contact with Central Asian musical traditions during the Tang dynasty influenced Chinese court music. These were not just technical exchanges, they were exchanges of emotion, of ways of understanding how sound could move the human heart. A melody that began in one culture could, transformed and adapted, bring tears to eyes in a completely different civilization. The concept of a hospital as we know it today emerged from Islamic medicine and spread along trade routes. The first true hospitals, called bimaristans, appeared in Baghdad and other Islamic cities during the 8th and 9th centuries. These institutions provided free care to all, regardless of wealth or status, and included specialized wards, medical libraries, and training facilities for doctors. The concept spread both eastward and westward, influencing medical care across Eurasia. When European crusaders encountered these institutions, they were amazed by their sophistication and brought knowledge of them back to Europe, where the idea gradually took root. The breeding and trade of horses was itself a sophisticated science along the Silk Road. Different regions bred horses for different purposes: the powerful war horses of Central Asia, the swift Arabian horses prized for their endurance, the sturdy Mongolian ponies that could survive on sparse grazing. Knowledge of horse breeding, training techniques, and bloodlines was carefully preserved and shared among those who valued these animals. The exchange of breeding stock along the Silk Road created new breeds and improved existing ones. A horse's lineage might be traced across continents, with prestigious ancestry adding enormously to an animal's value. The Silk Road was not just about the movement of things, it was about the movement of knowledge, beauty, healing, and wisdom. Close your eyes and feel yourself floating on this river of human achievement, this testament to what we can accomplish when we remain open to learning from each other, when we value understanding over ignorance, connection over isolation. Let us explore the final treasures that the Silk Road carried across the ancient world. The art of making perfume was itself a sophisticated craft that traveled these routes. The city of Grasse in southern France would eventually become famous for perfume, but the knowledge that made this possible came from the East. Persian and Arab perfumers had developed distillation techniques that could capture the essence of flowers, herbs, and spices in oils and alcohol. These techniques, along with precious ingredients like musk from Tibet, ambergris from Wales, and rose oil from Persia, traveled westward. The word attar, meaning essential oil, comes directly from Persian, another linguistic reminder of these ancient exchanges. Architectural innovations traveled alongside the caravans in the form of knowledge and craftsmen. The dome, which would become such an iconic feature of Islamic architecture, evolved through the exchange of building techniques between Roman, Persian, and Byzantine traditions. The pointed arch, often associated with Islamic architecture, may have originated in pre-Islamic Persia but spread throughout the Islamic world and eventually influenced Gothic architecture in Europe. The wind towers of Yazd in Persia, ingenious structures that caught breezes and channeled them down into buildings for natural cooling, represent another architectural innovation born from the region's harsh climate and carried by knowledge exchange. The concept of the bazaar, that covered marketplace where merchants gathered under one roof, became a standard feature of cities along the Silk Road. These weren't merely shopping areas but social institutions, places where people gathered not just to buy and sell but to exchange news, arrange marriages, settle disputes, and maintain community bonds. The Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, which still operates today, evolved from this tradition. At its height, it contained over 4,000 shops organized by trade, with separate sections for jewelers, carpet sellers, spice merchants, and countless other specialties. Walking through such a bazaar was like walking through the entire known world in miniature. Chess, that ancient game of strategy, traveled from India westward along the Silk Road, transforming as it went. The game originated in India as Chaturanga around the 6th century CE, representing a battle with pieces for infantry, cavalry, elephants, and chariots. As it traveled through Persia, it became Shatranj, and the pieces evolved to reflect Persian culture. When the game reached Europe through Islamic Spain and the Crusades, it transformed again, with pieces taking on European forms. Yet despite these changes, people across 3 continents could recognize the essential game, a beautiful example of how ideas adapt while maintaining their core identity. The cultivation of citrus fruits represents another agricultural exchange with far-reaching effects. Oranges, lemons, and limes originated in Southeast Asia and gradually spread westward. Arab traders brought citrus cultivation to the Mediterranean, where the warm climate proved ideal. The city of Seville in Spain became famous for its bitter oranges, used to make marmalade. Sweet oranges arrived in Europe later, through Portuguese traders. The journey of these fruits, which now seem so commonplace, took centuries and involved the patient work of countless gardeners and traders who recognized their value and worked to establish them in new lands. Silk Road cities developed sophisticated water management systems, essential for survival in arid climates. The Khanate system, which originated in ancient Persia, used underground channels to transport water from mountain sources to cities and fields, minimizing evaporation. This technology spread throughout Central Asia and beyond. Some Khanates built over 2,000 years ago still function today, a testament to the engineering skill of their creators. The knowledge of building and maintaining these systems traveled with Persian engineers who were sought after throughout the region for their expertise. The tradition of storytelling itself was enriched by Silk Road exchanges. Tales traveled with merchants and pilgrims, transforming as they passed from culture to culture. The frame story structure of 1001 Nights shows influences from Persian, Indian, and Arab storytelling traditions. Individual tales within this collection have been traced to origins across the Silk Road world. Sinbad's voyages reflect real maritime trade routes, while stories of magical carpets may reference the beauty and value of actual Persian carpets. These stories entertained, yes, but they also preserved cultural memory and transmitted values across generations and civilizations. Let us speak of astronomy's role in navigation along the Silk Road. The astrolabe, an ancient astronomical instrument used to locate and predict the positions of the sun, moon, planets, and stars, was refined by Islamic scholars building on Greek knowledge. This device was essential for navigation, allowing travelers to determine their position by the stars. The knowledge of using celestial navigation, along with the instruments themselves, spread along trade routes. Chinese, Arab, and European navigators all benefited from this shared astronomical knowledge, each contributing their own observations and refinements to the collective understanding of the heavens. And now, dear traveler, we have reached the end of our first 100 facts, our journey through just a portion of the vast story that is the Silk Road. But like the Silk Road itself, this is not really an ending, it is a resting place, a caravanserai where you can pause and reflect before continuing on. The stories go on forever, each fact containing within it a dozen more stories, each thread connecting to countless others. Let yourself rest now in the knowledge that the world has always been more connected than we imagine, that human creativity and curiosity have always found ways to bridge any distance. Sleep peacefully, and let these stories of connection and wonder carry you gently into dreams. The Silk Road stretches on, through history and into tomorrow, and you are part of its continuing story. Rest well, traveler. Rest well.